אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, ואין לנו עמי להישואל, ואין לנו עמי להישואל, אוי אלו אלו אלוהינו, אלו אלו אלוהינו, אבינו שבשמיים, אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, ואין לנו עמי להישואל.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Boker Tov. We're going to have a wonderful lesson about the Dagesh today. Can you say Dagesh?
Dagesh.
So let's start with a word of prayer. Bow our heads. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we thank you, Lord God, as we progress in our knowledge and our wisdom. We have eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to perceive the deep things of God. And Father, let this be the year that all things come together, Lord God, all the pieces of the puzzle. Just as prophetically all things are coming together. We thank you that you're revealing the truth of who Yeshua is as the Messiah. But he started as a rabbi teaching students. And I pray this morning we would be your students, Talmidim, learning from the Torah and learning from the language of Ivrit, the holy tongue. And Father, we pray that Zephaniah 3:9 would come into full fruition today, Lord God, for not only this class, but for all those watching online, for the nations. We pray, Lord God, that the holy tongue would be restored back to your people. Lashon HaKodesh. In Yeshua's name we pray. B'Shem Yeshua. Amen. How many enjoyed learning about the definite article hey last week?
Yep.
All right. How many remember any of the principles of the letter hey? Can anybody tell me one principle they learned last week from the letter hey? So, well, you should understand something. If you did it, then you didn't ask the question. So there's the key. Remember, there's never a foolish question except the one that never gets asked, because you're still left questioning. So if you don't learn something, leave it in your own court. You have to ask the question, what does this mean? If we talk about something and you don't understand, you have to raise your hand and ask, and we will take that question, because we want to make sure step by step everybody's traveling and learning together, okay? So someone share with me one thing you learned last week about the letter hey. We know it's one of the 22 Hebrew letters, right?
Yeah.
And what is it included in?
In the prefix.
In one of the prefixes, which is half of the alphabet. 11 prefixes out of 22 letters, that's half. And hey is one of them. So what does it indicate, the letter hey? So hey is for the definite article, which we now say in English, we would say the. In Spanish it'd be what?
La, le, or L.
El or, right?
La.
Or la. Okay. So we see here, hey is a definite article. Okay. And what happened last week, we found out that not only do you have to know exactly what vowel needs to be used, we found out there were certain rules for the definite article hey. And the Dagesh came up in our study. So I said I would teach you about the Dagesh today because it came up and we need to have clarity. Does anybody remember the rule about the letter hey? Maybe you might need to pull out your handout or maybe just do a notes list. So did I give you a handout? Yeah. The handout. What was, does anybody remember what one of the rules for the letter hey was for a definite article? 9 times out of 10, what vowel are we going to see underneath the letter hey? The top, right? We're going to see the top. So it's going to look something like this. And I would see this in front of words like Torah, right? Torah, it would be HaTorah. There would be certain rules if you experience, like, for instance, in Haggadah, or, that's not a good example. How about Gedulah, meaning something that is large, with that's a feminine gendered noun. Gedulah, Gadol, would be large for a male. A Talit Gadol is a large prayer shawl, or the Kohen Gadol is the large or big priest, or the, not referring to his weight, but referring to his stature and position. So he's the high priest, we translate that, but really the word is big. Gedulah would actually be for the feminine form of that adjective, referring to a feminine noun. So if I put ha in front of it, does anybody remember what happens to the shva underneath the first letter of gedolah? Gedolah. What happens with the definite article ha? And then when we try to pronounce gedolah, do we pronounce it all like ha gedolah? No. It all slams together in a closed syllable of hagdolah. Hagdolah. Okay? So certain letters have affect that, and then the digest is also another rule. Does anybody else remember anything else about the letter ha? Let's just review. Something to be able to pull something off your notes from last week, and just be able to either read it to me and tell me what it is.
Can be interrogative in the sense that not every hey at the beginning of a word is a definite article. That it can also, in some words, it's used as a first consonant for a word.
Okay, it can be the first letter of a word, actually. So it's not all the time that it is a prefix, but it can be used as a prefix, and we would have to kind of be familiar with the nouns to be able to know the difference. For instance, I mentioned a second ago for Passover, we use a Haggadah. Most of the time we pronounce it a Haggadah, but it's really Haggadah, okay? So that is actually the first letter of the word for the reading of the story, coming from the same root as Magid. The Magid is the storyteller. The Haggadah is referring to the root to tell a story, okay? Question?
No,
Or
I was
comment?
just going to say that, if I remember right, that the hey, if it's in front of a word that begins with a hey, that you say it F instead of up.
Okay, so you remember that depending on what the first letter of the word is, we would have to change it. So for instance, if I spell the word mountain, what's the word mountain?
R.
R. Okay? And I have another hey in front of it for the mountain. What's our vowels going to be? Instead of ha, we're going to change it to har. Hey.
Siri.
Hey har, hey harim, right? We'll change it. Does anybody remember why?
Two ha's.
Okay, what do we know about the gutturals? Remember, if it's a guttural, we're going to change that sound, okay? So then you're going to see this you're going to see the sigol in the vowel here, okay? So now, that's not what we're talking about today, but that was just something I wanted to see if you picked up anything. Anybody else, anything else you want to say about the...
Changes to a kamatz in front of...
it changes to a kamatz in front of...
Resh, Aleph, or Aleph or Ayin.
So an Aleph, an Ayin, or Resh. So if I have Isha, let's start with Ish. Here's Ish. Right? Ish. What is Ish?
Person, man.
Man. How do you say woman?
Isha.
Isha. Notice that the sound Isha comes from the sound Ish, because woman came from the man. Very good. All right. So if I want to say the man, what do I put in front as a prefix?
Hey.
Okay. Now, normally I would have this, but in front of these unique gutturals of the Aleph, the Ayin, and the Resh, I will not make it definite enough because of the sound of these letters, and especially two of them being silent letters until you add the vowel. I need to intensify the length of my ha, because it's going to kind of get lost in ha, or in this case, ha'i. And so I need to lengthen it, so it's going to go from a top to a kamat. Okay, so it's ha'ish. Now let's do another word. How about this one in the Torah, in the book of Bereshit? What's this word? Aretz. Okay. So how are we going to put the definite article here? What vowel is going to go under aretz? We're going to have to intensify to ha'aretz. Ha'aretz, because we need more strength to separate these two ah sounds. Okay? Okay. So that being last week's lesson, I hope hopefully you're going to practice that as much as possible, because I think it's important to understand how to use the definite article. And once we get through the dagesh and then a lesson for vav, I will quiz you on all three. How many enjoyed the quizzing we did on the Sheva?
Yeah.
Remember the Sheva, the Shevana, and the Shevanach. On the Shevana, does it sound or is it silent? Shevana.
Sounding.
Now, how do you know that?
Because
What happened to my mouth?
stayed open.
It stayed open. It's an open syllable. Shevana. So if you can't shut someone's mouth, they're not staying silent.
Right.
Right? So it has to be a sounding Sheva that we now give it sound like a shofar. So Shevana, just in the name of it, you know the mouth is open, you can't shut someone's mouth, they keep on talking. That's what happens with this term that means to move. It keeps moving, it keeps sounding. Remember, in Him we live and move and have our being. That means we must keep talking and declaring our faith to be moving in faith, right? So we talk about where we're going first before we get there.
Right.
God talked to Abraham about where he was going before he moved there. So he spoke by faith, and then that's when he began to speak to his family, his household. This is what we're doing. We're all moving. Guess what? You don't move until you talk. So that moving Sheva needs to talk. Now, if you're like Noah or Noach, you know the other Sheva is the Sheva Nach. And when I had that sound of chutzpah in there, it is coming to a glottal stop. That means it's silent. It's coming to a close. It means to rest. So you either have a Sheva that keeps moving, a Sheva that's resting. Notice in Hebrew, it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
You're either resting or you're moving by faith. You either take a rest on Shabbat and you move throughout the week, 6 days a week until you rest on Shabbat. Okay? So that's not saying we only use the Shevanach on Shabbat. It just means that in principle there are the two types. So in the same way there are two types of Shavas, there are going to be two types of dagesh. See, can you say dagesh?
Dagesh.
Now here's the argument. Is it dagesh or dagesh? I was even confused when I first started learning this because I've heard teachers teach both. But I want to show you the spelling of the word. I'm going to enlarge it here, especially for our viewers. Nice and big. For those that complain that they can't see these tiny words on the board. Here are the three letters. What are the three letters?
Dalet,
Dalet,
Gimel,
Gimel, and
Shin.
in this case, you don't know which one it is, but we'll assume the first sound of the letter Shin. Okay? So let's review our Aleph Bet, 5 letters at a time, and then we'll go to the vowels and see what vowels go into this word. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yud. Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech. Ein, Hey, Sadi, Kuf, Resh. Shin, Ta. Okay, so our vowels, so we can sound this out, are 5 vowels, and we're going to have 5 sounds, and we know about the 5 vowels and the 5 vowel indicators. Okay? Not forgetting the 6 gutturals, or excuse me, 5 gutturals. It's almost like 4 and 1 added. And then we have the, oh, I said 5, right?
Yeah.
I wrote it. I'll just get the eraser on that guy. Okay, so 5. And then we have 6 special letters that we call the BeGaD KeFaT. Or BeGaD KeFaT, depending on that. Remember, BeGaD means clothing. And I said one way to remember is remember the clothing that makes you look a little fat. Because this means like. So, BeGaD KeFaT. Again, this is just an acronym, but that's the way I remember it, BeGaD KeFaT. Big clothes. All right, so let's take the sound of vowels out. A-E-I-O-U is A-E-I-O-U. One time through. 1, 2, 3. A-E-I-O-U. If it's lines, it's usually what sound? Multiple dots? One dot? Vav with the dot on top? Vav with the dot on the side. Very good. That's your basics, and everything else is kind of an extra cherry on top. So the first letter in Hebrew here that we are using for this word, dagesh, is the 4th letter, and that letter is Dalet. Okay, so the dagesh the word is spelled with a dalet that also needs a dagesh. It's going to teach us one of our rules. I'm going to put a nice big dagesh there. This is like in the name David. In ancient times, it was one of the special letters, BeGaD KeFaT, which we know would be the letter Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and then we would have the Kaf, the Pei, and we would have the Tav. In today's Hebrew, which letters change the sound if there's no dagesh in the BeGaD KeFaT letters? It used to be that all of them had to change, but which letters change?
Okay.
Yeah, that's one. Without it, it would be go from B to V. We don't have it in modern Hebrew except Yemenites and other groups that might have the G to Gimel, or like Savol. Okay, and then we have the Dalet stays the same. This one changes, and this one changes. If you're Ashkenazi, that one changes from a Tav to a Saf. It probably changed from a T to a almost a TH sound, but a very soft one. Yeah. So the only ones we worry about changing sound is in the absence of these three. We know we're going to change from a B to V, from a K to a KH or CH, from a P to a PH or F sound. So those are the only three that actually change sound. Okay. Now here we have the dalet. We have a dagesh in there to make dagesh. Everybody say dagesh. Dagesh. Okay. So what's our vowel underneath? We just did our vowels. Kamats. So we said if there's lines, usually we have a sound. Most of the time, this symbol kamats is an A. Every once in a while, we learn a special rule that it could be an O sound. Okay. So then we have what letter next? Gimel. Gimel. So the Gimel is accompanied with seirei underneath, which are two dots side by side, and that is a long E sound, pronounced eh. And then we're going to have the letter shin with the dot on the right side, not typically called a dagesh like this. We don't refer to it as a dagesh, although it looks just like one. It's not used functionally as a dagesh, which is usually connected to special rules. So in this case, it's just the dot that clarifies it's the shin or sin. Okay, so in this case, the dot on the right way to say it is shin. Okay, so here we have the word. All right. Now, tell me the length of these two vowels.
Long.
What's our rule for the two long vowels?
Second.
So usually the second or last syllable in Hebrew usually gets the accent, most of the time. In fact, sometimes they'll put a special little line in a book with vowels to indicate it's accented when it's unclear. But most of the time you can almost guess a word like Torah, the two long vowels, is always going to be the last syllable pronounced. And the same thing with this one. We have dagesh. So this is a long A, this is a long E sound. So A and E vowel. So it should be pronounced what? Dagesh. Dagesh. And most Israelis will say it that way. When you hear someone saying a dagesh, usually, they could be from New York, they could be Americans, speaker learning Hebrew, but this is the way it should be pronounced. Dagesh. Okay? So we have two types of dagesh. We have, number one, we have the dagesh. In Hebrew, we'd say dagesh kal. Which, remember, kal v'chomer is a rule of Hillel, the first rule that he gathered from the sages. And he said that kal is referring to light versus homer, which means heavy. Kal v'chomer means light and heavy. It means something that's true in a lighter sense is also true in a heavier sense. Same word, kal. This means light. What does kal mean? Light. So we call it dagesh kal in Hebrew, but from the Latin we call it lene. Lene. In the same way, the second dagesh we have is called dagesh chazak, which means what? Strong. And the Latin, coming very similar to the Italian there, same as the Italian. How do you say strong in Latin or Italian? Forte. In Spanish it'd be fuerte. Same word, okay? It means strong. But in Hebrew we call it dagesh chazak. So I want you to know both names, because in this article that I've put together. It's primarily using the Latin form of it, which is used in most schools and universities for teaching Hebrew. You're going to hear probably not Hazak, you're probably going to hear Forte, you're probably not going to hear Kal, you're going to hear Nene. Okay? So let's take a look at what is Dagesh. Ask me the question. I'm so glad you asked. A Dagesh is a dot, usually in the middle of a word, and this excludes the vowel shuruk and a special marking called a mapik. A mapik, like in certain letters, they have here an example of the tav, but it can be used in other letters, the mapik. And we'll learn a lesson on mapik later, not today. Second, we say, what did Dagesh Lene, the first one, the light Dagesh, originally signified? We find out that it's originally connected to this rule here, the BeGaD KeFaT. So number one purpose for the first Dagesh is connected to special rules of these special letters, the BeGaD KeFaT. Again, this is just an acronym to remember the 6 letters of the Beit, the Gimel, the Dalet, the Kaf, the Pei, and the Tav. Okay? So what's our first one called in Hebrew? Dagesh Kal, or in Latin or in universities, you're going to hear what? Dagesh Lene. So it says, here we have a acronym, BeGaD KeFaT. It says, but now it's only changes the pronunciation. So the number one purpose for this Dagesh is for pronunciation. Pronunciation. It is going to teach me how to pronounce the letter. That's one of its number one purposes, is to give us special rules for BeGaD KeFaT, these 6 letters, and how to pronounce them. Okay? You follow me so far? Mm-hmm. Right. If you have a question, just raise your hand. It says, when does one of the BeGaD KeFaT permit a Dagesh Lene? Number one would be at the beginning of a word. At the beginning of a word. So you know it's Dagesh Lene when it's at the beginning. Okay? Dagesh Lene. One of the examples we have here is the word Ben. It starts with a BeGaD KeFaT letter, correct? Mm-hmm. And it has a Dagesh in it, and it's just these 2 letters, Ben. Very similar to the Aramaic form of it, bar, as in bar mitzvah, or bat mitzvah, based on that concept of son and daughter. But in this case, the Hebrew is Ben, as in Benjamin, or Ben Nun, sometimes pronounced Ben Nun, which is referring to Yeshua, Joshua, the son of Nun, right? Okay, so number one is at the what? Beginning of a word, okay? Second, in the middle of a word, okay? So now we have, at the beginning, we have also in the middle. Again, we're only talking about the Dagesh Kal or Lene, right? The number one purpose for this is for what? Pronunciation. Okay. And it says, in the middle of the word, to the left of a silent shva. The example we are given is midbar. What does midbar mean?
Desert.
Desert, right? Ben midbar would mean what?
In the desert.
In the desert, or sometimes spelled ba midbar, but in the text it's ben midbar Sinai, which is in the Sinai desert. Okay? So in the middle, and then we'd have to put after a shva, what?
No.
Shva.
No.
No.
Na. Very good. Wait a minute. No. Yes, so the na means moving. Na keeps vocalizing, right? Na. The silent one is nach.
No.
So after a shva, nach. Okay. So what's our example? Midbar. Spell it for me.
Mem.
Let's go here. Mem.
No.
Waiting. Vowel.
Ivrit.
Ivrit. You just say I vowel if you don't know. Okay. Then what else?
Dalet.
Dalet. No, there's no dagesh here. It's going to be a rule we're going to learn. No dagesh here.
Mhm.
Okay. And then we have what?
Bait.
Bait. In this case, we're going to have a dagesh, and then we're going to have a
Resh.
resh. So what we need here
Shabbat.
is now the Shabbat.
No.
So in this case, why is this a Shabbat nach? Does anybody remember the rule between the Shabbat nach and na? What do we have here? What length of vowel? Do we have a long or a shorter vowel?
Medium.
A shorter vowel, that's a medium vowel we call it. And we know that if it's short, it's like shortening someone's cutting you off. So this is a closed syllable. In this case, we have 2 syllables. Midbar. The only way you know this rests and doesn't sound is if it's a short vowel. Okay? So it would have to be a long vowel. It would have to be followed by yud to be mi de bar. Mi de bar. It's not mi de bar. It's mid bar. It's a silent Y because it's not long. It's not following a long vowel. The Shabbat nach always follows a short vowel. Say that with me. The Shabbat nach always follows a short vowel. We use midbar. We use mishnah. We use talmid. All those are following short vowels, or what we call in this case the medium. So if it was long, it's going to sound all by itself and be its own syllable. Right? Because it's going to keep its mouth open, and this is only when there's a closed syllable. Okay? So in the middle of the word, after a Shabbat, nah. So let's start back with the rule 1. The dagesh kal, for pronunciation only, is at the beginning. So we're having a B sound here, ben, right? And in the middle of the word, after Shabbat, nah. So we have to make this not midvar, but midbar. Now let's just take a play on words here. I love the fact that God's voice or His word is in the desert. Because if I have here this word, what's this word? Davar. So here we have me, bar. See if you can catch the correlation here. What's the length of this vowel? Long. What's the length of this one? Long. So davar, the accent's on the second long vowel, the last one here, right? Davar. Why did we put a dagesh here? Because the rule is, for pronunciation purposes, only at the beginning of a word, you put a dagesh, lene. It changes it from a light beat to a strong beat. So it controls the lightness of it. That's why it's called lene. It controls how light or how strong. It goes back and forth. It's only at the beginning of the word, like ben, and only in the middle of the word after Shabbat nach. So because we have this Shabbat nach here, we have to put a dagesh in that beat. We don't have to put it here. It doesn't belong. Because this is a long vowel all by itself. And so there's no rule to force this to take the dagesh. Because this is a special letter of BeGaD KeFaT, and this dagesh kal has special pronunciation rules for these 6 letters. Is everybody following me?
Yes.
Okay. So what's rule number 1?
At the beginning.
So should that be ben?
Ben.
It's ben. Very good. The dagesh gives it a strong B sound. It's changing the pronunciation from this special letter that in today's Sephardic world, we only have the beit, the kaf, and the pei having the special strengthened sound going from from what they can call fricative to more aspirant, I think is the term. Okay, in linguistics. Okay, so here's an example. Notice that God spoke His Davar Torah, right? In the midbar.
Right.
So midbar is the wilderness. God always speaks in your wilderness, right? But that's the place He gave the Torah. Was in the desert of Sinai. So you have davar in the wilderness. God will always give you a davar in the midst of your wilderness. Now that'll preach the horns off Billy.
Yeah.
But I don't have time to do that today. Boy, I tell you, some full gospel churches would eat that up. Come on, Rabbi! You know, tear that thing up. All right, sit down. It's hollow, right? Come on. So that's the example we have. for that one. Now, if we keep reading, boy, this is some good stuff, isn't it? It's going to just clarify a lot of things for you, because I'm sure you've all questioned when the dagesh is in there, when it's not in there, what it does, how to know what it does. There's all these questions about the dagesh. He's got a big question mark. That's why we started with what is a dagesh. And then it says at the end of a word. So we have the beginning, we have the middle, and we have at the end of a word, not beginning a syllable to the left of a silent shabbat. Okay? So at the end of a word, not beginning a syllable to the left of a silent shabbat. So, actually, the example here doesn't really show me that. We'll come back to that because I need a better example than the word that's here. Okay, so we have at the beginning of the word, in the middle of a word, to the left of the silent Shabbat, at the end of the word, to the left of a silent Shabbat. Okay? So just basically a little further down at the end of the word, which actually this is a perfect example of it at the end of the word. Okay? It says not beginning, a beginning syllable. Again, we'll come back to that one. I think that's referring to when you see the dagesh in the last letter. So we'll come back to that. Okay, now let's go back to these letters because I think this is the most important. When does one of the BeGaD KeFaT letters not permit a dagesh lenne? Number one, when the BeGaD KeFaT letter is to the left of a vowel. When it's to the left of a vowel. So the second one is when the BeGaD KeFaT letter is to the left of a vocal shabbat. So this is a perfect example of if we do this. We're going to take out, wait here. So this is that. So we're going to lose the dagesh. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, shouldn't it be this? So normally, this is what, this is a whole new rule. This is an extra rule that I just threw up there that's going to include the vav lesson. So we don't have the vav lesson today. But normally it would be that, and we'd have changes for various reasons, and then it would be uvein. So I can't get into the length of that today. I probably should use another prefix. But basically, whenever there's a shabbat in front of it, okay? Okay, what does the dagesh forte indicate? So let's move on to dagesh forte. I'm going to make some room here. Okay, so the dagesh chazak or forte is not concerned with pronunciation at all. The number one thing it's referring to is not pronunciation but writing. How do we write the letter? It used to be that it affected the pronunciation, no longer. Okay, it is a lost art. Okay, so the dagesh chazak is a doubling of a letter. So in writing, when you see a dagesh chazak, it means you're doubling the letter. Yeah, we're going to go through examples. Okay, what does the dagesh forte indicate? A doubling of a letter. Is the shabbat under a dagesh forte silent or vocal? The answer is vocal. The dagesh forte already has an implied silent shabbat. So the shabbat under a dagesh forte, is it forte silent or vocal? Okay, so whenever I have a letter like this, we have the vocal shabbat here in this case because of the dagesh. Let's wait a minute, I'm going to give you a rule for that. Okay, so let's use an example of the doubling. Number one reason for this. I'm going to give you a word, and and you're going to transliterate it for me.
Shabbat.
I'm so glad you figured that out. Okay, so first of all, there are a couple things we need to know. When it comes to the dagesh kal and the dagesh chazak, the gutturals can never take either. No kal and no chazak. So we're not going to use the dagesh with these 5 special letters of the aleph, the hey, the chet, the ayin, and the resh. You're not going to usually see a dagesh and an aleph. Only at the end of a word, sometimes in a hey, but normally nowhere else. Chet, you won't see it, and ayin, you won't see the dagesh. You're not going to see any special letters. They don't take it. Either one. One, whether it's for pronunciation or for double letters. You're never going to see a double aleph. Okay? You're never going to see a double hey. You're never going to see a double chet. And you're never going to see a double ayin or resh. Never. Say never.
Never.
So first rule is, when it comes to the two, the gutturals take neither. Okay? Let's go to the next group. After the gutturals, we talked about BeGaD KeFaT. And this one takes both kal and chazak. So the gutturals take neither. The BeGaD KeFaT take either. Okay? So they can either have either one. The difference is what you do with the letter and how you sound it. If they can take both, they both have 2 different rules. So in this case, we have this letter beit, which is part of BeGaD KeFaT. It has a different rule than if it was the dagesh kal or the dagesh lene. So let's transliterate this and then it'll make sense, okay? Here's a word we use all the time. We say today what? Shabbat Shalom. Okay? So what's the first letter?
Shin.
Shin. Read from right to left, Shin, and then we transliterate that SH. What's our vowel underneath?
Petah.
Tach. We translate that as a an A vowel. Okay? What are we going to do with this letter beit now? Because we're not dealing with pronunciation on this dagesh like we do in the dagesh kal. We're looking at only writing, which means double. When you look at dagesh chazak, it's all about writing in today's Hebrew and about doubling the letter. When to double the letter. Okay? You follow me so far? Touch your neighbor and say, wake up. So in this case, what does this dagesh chazak do? Double. Spell it for me.
BB.
Ah, very good.
Beit.
Why? Because this dagesh in this letter, which we know these letters can take either one. Either one. When a dagesh kal is in a BeGaD KeFaT letter, it refers to the pronunciation of the letter. It goes from a V to a B, or it retains the B sound. In this case, the rule is not about pronunciation. This special rule, since it can take both, is only about how to spell it out. So I have to spell it like this. Shabbat. So these double B's give me a B on one side and B on the other. So technically, it's like there's a break in the syllable right in between the letter. So normally, if you really wanted to look at this in pronunciation, if we were doing this phonetically, we would be spelling it like this.
Making it stronger.
Yes. Sha. With yeah, I guess you silly would do that. So we have sha, shabbat, shabbat, shabbat.
But when you look at it like that, how do you really know?
This is never used. This is just for instructional purposes. What we're telling you is this letter beit not only needs to follow this rule in this case of being a strong B sound for pronunciation, because it's in the middle of the word, right? It's going to keep its B sound. but its real main focus for this rule of Chazak is to double the letter when spelling it. It has nothing to do with pronunciation in today's world. We usually just say Shabbat. We actually just know that the rule is like that, okay? A perfect example is the word bride. And so we have really, it's like as if it does this. Kala. If you want to really do it, it's 2 L's, but no one ever does it in Hebrew today because Israelis hate to have extra letters, okay? So let's see if we can just get this last portion on the back page. Okay, so in what letters can the dagesh forte occur? Any consonant except your gutturals. So remember we said 5 guttural letters? They never take a dagesh kal or lene, and they never take a dagesh chazak or forte. Neither one. So that's one that you will never have a dagesh in. When is the dagesh permitted? When preceded by a vowel, usually short, but also long in an accented syllable. Okay. So usually in any other letter you can have a dagesh, but there's special rules if it's in these 6. Okay. When is the dagesh forte not permitted? It may not begin or end a word. So a dagesh forte is not going to begin or end a word. Obviously the end, can you imagine this last letter was going to be doubled, so I have hey at the end. Hey. Okay. A dagesh is a non-BeGaD KeFaT word. And if it's any other letter but these, it's a dagesh forte. So normally on most words, like again, any letter that is not one of these special letters or in the gutturals, when it takes a dagesh, it's just going to be spelling issues. It's never going to be vocal. The only dagesh that changes the vocals is this one. The dagesh, lene, or kal, and that's only in these letters. And in today's world, only in these 3 out of the 6. Does that follow you? Yeah. Okay, so everything else is all about writing. So there's a special rule for pronunciation, specific letters, but only for writing. Now, I know this might seem a lot because this is one of those very difficult teachings or studies. But what I'll do is next week, I'll give a bunch of words on the board and you're going to tell me which is which. And you're going to tell me why. It won't be a full quizzing, but it'll be just kind of like a review of that. What we'll try to introduce next week is the vowel. When we put it all together, it'll all make sense. We'll look at some sentences from the Torah and that I think it'll all come together. What's today's Torah portion called?
Kitavo.
And that there's a rule in that, but I can't cover it today. So let's close in prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we thank you today, Lord God, for the dagesh kol and the dagesh chazak, for those that have letters that have a dagesh that changes pronunciation, or those that just changes the spelling. We pray that we will get familiar with using the dagesh and understanding its rules. Father, we pray, Lord God, that each student will be able to retain the information they've received today. In Yeshua's name, Amen. Amen. God bless you.
Yeshua Meshiach